Welcome to VSB News Online for Thursday, June the 4th. I'm Charles Webb. Bermudians convicted of drug or serious criminal offenses should not expect to be granted entry into the United States. This from outgoing U.S. Consul General Robert Secchi. He says that as U.S. immigration law is based on federal law, this is not likely to change.
That doesn't mean that people who have convictions for small amounts of drugs, especially cannabis, will never have the opportunity to travel to the United States. The fact is that there is a procedure for applying for a visa and a waiver of the condition that would allow them to travel to the United States. And without naming names or giving too many numbers, I don't want to shame anyone, I will tell you that there are people in Bermuda who do need waivers and who come in to apply for them and who do receive them. So there are folks who would otherwise be on the so-called stop list who are permitted to travel to the United States.
But let's talk about the stop list. I mean, is there really such a thing as a stop list?
There's not it's not a paper list anyway. It works this way. If it comes to our attention that you may have run afoul of our immigration laws such that you would be inadmissible to the United States, we would enter your name in our system. And if you came to our attention, say by trying to travel to the United States and appearing before Customs and Border Protection at the airport, or if you went to apply for an American visa somewhere, then the case would come up. We would see that you had this issue and we would try to resolve it then. If it turned out that you had a conviction, let's say, for possession of drugs, you would be inadmissible to the United States, and it would be at that point that you would have to apply for a visa and a waiver of that inadmissibility to enter.
Now, there was some concern that in the past, I know about now, that the U.S. immigration people garnered these names from newspapers, sometimes before these people were convicted of any offense. Is that still the way it works now?
Yeah, it's an interesting process. Actually, we can get the information from almost anywhere. It can come from news stories. Our consular section here at the consulate does not routinely peruse the news, Bermuda news, for that purpose. But if something comes to their attention, they very well may make an entry in the system just as a marker in case that person comes to our attention.
Are LBGT rights human rights? The U.S. government and Robert Secchi think so. He talks about this in our interview tomorrow. 8 local vendors today received their certificates after completing a 3-part vendor seminar series by the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation. Junior Minister for Home Affairs Sylvan Richards and Chairman of the BEDC Nicholas Kemp presented the certificates to entrepreneurs whose goals are to get involved in a variety of industries, including retail and home products.
It's just a very encouraging thing to see Bermudians take that step to go out, take the risk, and start their own businesses. The Bermuda Economic Development Corporation has been instrumental in putting on the seminars that train people who are interested in vending in how to meet the government requirements to vendor, and also how to market their own business, how to create a buzz surrounding their business, and just general business principles on how to be successful.
To aid as well with us providing these microenterprises best practice skills, we've also tabled new vendor legislation, which is to replace the Peddlers Act from a long time ago. It was well in need of a refresh, and we provided updated good governance standards, improved licensing processes, and modernized regulations, which brings it in line with other successful vendor jurisdictions. And as chairman on behalf of the BEDC and the wonderful team we have here, I'd like to present our 8, although not everyone's here, certificate awardees.
Rate increases were foreshadowed when Balco's parent company released its annual report a few weeks ago. Now it's a reality. Balco yesterday filed with the Energy Commission to increase its rates, which, if granted, would increase the average householder's bill by 7%. Chris Lodge has the figures.
Under proposals submitted to the Energy Commission by the utility, residential tariffs or the base rate would be jacked up by between 5% and 29.9%, depending on the level of usage. Typical households will see their electricity bills rise by 7% or more. Commercial customers would see their bills climb by an average of nearly 15%. Belco also wants to increase the facilities charge, which is set according to average consumption per day, by 1/5. As a regulated utility, Belco cannot increase its rates without first getting permission from the Energy Commission. The fuel adjustment rate, which is governed by the price of fuel that Belco burns, is not part of the rate increase proposal. The company says it needs the rate increases to sustain the level of investment needed to maintain a reliable first-world electricity system. The company's sales of electricity have declined 11% during the past 5 years as a result of a falling population and a decline in economic activity. Meantime, expenses have risen, driven by ever-increasing maintenance costs for Belco's aging fleet of generators and rising healthcare and pension costs. This combination of factors has squeezed profits to what Belco Chief Executive Officer Walter Higgins says is an unsustainable level, hence the request for a price increase. I'm Chris Lodge, VSB News.
Ornithologist Dr. Andre Rain has returned to his island home after 5 years of working to save endangered seabirds. He'll be talking about his work at the BUEI on Monday night.
The working with the Cahao with David Wingate was basically the spark for my interest in seabird conservation, and a lot of the things that are occurring with the Cahao project here are the same things that I'm doing in Kauai. So, seabirds are the same around the world, and endangered seabirds in particular, so all the things that would be going on here are exactly the same sort of thing that we're doing in Hawaii.
Did you go there but deliberately to find that kind of a situation?
I've been working around the world on bird projects, ornithological projects and conservation projects, and I'd come from Malta in the Mediterranean working on a puffinus seabird species there, and then this job came up and I thought, wow, Kauai, yeah, I can handle another small island.
Yes. They're difficult, but what is it about these birds? They do wonderfully amazing things, and yet they get threatened not just by man, in the case of the Cahao. Was the shearwater threatened by man too?
It is. Well, I mean, it faces a whole load of different threats. This is the Nile shearwater, and I also work on the Hawaiian petrels, the 2 species. And they basically, all their threats are caused by humans. So introduced predators is a big one. Things like cats and pigs, which were a problem to the Cahao here in Bermuda back in the past. Collisions with power lines and light attraction, changing habitat due to all these invasive plant species. So they face a whole raft of threats, and then one has to think about what happens to them at sea, things like overfishing and climate change and pollution. They don't have an easy time, basically.
But the government here took an interest in it, and thank God we had David Wingate to start it all, and Mr. Medeiros to follow him. That's probably unique in its own way, but we started doing things like inventing burrows and filming them at night with ultraviolet cameras and things. Are you doing the same thing?
We are. In fact, interestingly enough, we are actually using some of David's burrows for one of our projects in Hawaii, so there's a very tangible link between Bermuda and Hawaii.
Do you work with other people there who have heard of the Cahao experience?
It was interesting, actually. There was a lot of people who'd actually heard of Cahao. I mean, the Cahao's a pretty legendary bird, one of the rarest seabirds in the world. A lot of people in the seabird world know about the Cahao. And people had also heard about the work we've been doing in Malta as well with this other endangered seabird. So it's nice tie-ins there.
And we'll be back with more news right after this.
In an effort to make Bermuda's roads safer, and in partnership with Bermuda Police Service and the Bermuda Road Safety Council, DeFon's Broadcasting is launching a safe driving campaign. Complete with thumb bands, come into DeFon's Broadcasting and 94 Reed Street and make the commitment to drive safer and slower for yourself. Your voice could be featured on the radio. Get yourself a thumb band as a reminder of your commitment to drive safer and with fewer distractions. While you're at it, why not get one for someone in your life who also needs a reminder that our roads do not discriminate. They can take anyone's life. Let's drive safe, Bermuda, and arrive alive. Peace and love. Safe journeys.
The Friends of Hospice are on target to raise the $120,000 they require from the annual Rubber Duck Derby in St. George on Sunday afternoon if they are to continue their programs at Agape House. Executive Director Kathy Belvedere tells us how the money will be spent.
This is our largest fundraiser. We have several during the year, but this is our biggest. And it is really what makes all the bells and the whistles and the wheels all turn. To support Agape House, it is the only hospice on island, and we actually provide additional support to them. So, in fact, we pay for the kitchen, for the chef, all of the food and things like that. We have a day hospice on Monday where people who are well enough to come out, but not well enough to be back to work, will come in on a Monday and they get totally pampered. And it also provides really essential support for them to each other. You know, to be sitting in a group of people that are struggling with an illness the same as you are. Our youngest person at the moment is 34 and our oldest is 90. So we have a wide variety of people, male and female. And it's just really a wonderful, diverse group who come together almost as family support for one another, you know, at a very difficult time in their life. So we pay for all of that, which includes like lunch for all of them. We do massage therapy, we have meditation, we've got art therapy, and we also have reflexology. So all kinds of different things that, you know, they come in at 10 and they finish at 3. So they get a day of just relaxing. And for many of them, it's the only day out of the week that they actually get out to go and do something that's strictly for them and makes them feel better about their circumstances.
Friendships that began in the 60s during the days of the Kinley Air Force Base and the Roger B. Chaffee School are being renewed this week as 40 members return for their first reunion in Bermuda. Ozzie Casillo, an American living in Vancouver, British Columbia, and Rudy Fox, a Bermudian and the grandson of War Baby Fox, now residing in Sacramento, California, reminisce on how those good old days still impact on their lives today.
Basically, nothing has really changed, and that's a good thing, you know, because the billboards, you don't see any of that stuff, and that high sale of neighborhoods and stuff like that has remained the same as it was then. The similarities is the old friends that I've had that I grew up with. Thing is that that hasn't changed, and as a matter of fact, with the computer and you know, various other programs that they have like FaceTime and all of that, it seems to have shrunk the world and made it a smaller place. In regards to you know, being back here, I've been fortunate enough because you know, certain things were in place to make it possible so that I could, you know, revisit this place here where I learned you know, respect and manners.
So many people I haven't seen in 45 years. And when we found out about it was going to be a reunion here in Bermuda where we all counted our friendship at, you know, to me it was special. So I had to come back home, you know, here and, you know, to see some of my friends, of course, like Ozzie and the rest of them. And it was such enjoyable because here there's a little island that brought so many people from all over together as a family, and we're still that way today. You know, when we see each other, I mean, it's just like we just saw each other yesterday. You know, a lot of hugs, a lot of love, you know, and it's such a good feeling, you know, especially being a Bermudian. So, you know, and seeing these Americans, how they adapted to the Bermuda culture, you know, and the kindness and the way they act, the way they present themselves, it's fascinating.
So how often do you all keep in contact with each other?
Well, we do it quite often. We do it through the Facebook, you know. Sometimes I'll call Izzy up or call someone up, you know, talk. Or Izzy wants to tell me a joke or something. I got a joke for you. So, you know, we do a lot of talking so that way we can keep our friendship going.
The Gum Bears will not be the only ones performing on the drum and chanting the annual Bermuda powwow at St. David's on June 13th and 14th. With great pride, Bermudian Trey Trott, who numbers the Pequot Indians among his ancestors, has learned to sing the songs and provide the drum music of the native Indian, and will be featured on both days of the celebration.
I'm just looking to have fun. I'm looking to sing. You know, back in Canada, where I got a lot of my teachings from about the drum and the songs and different things. You know, somebody had asked him, and I was like, just my close mate Brendan Patatagoose, my close mate. And somebody asked him, "Why do you guys sing?" So then he stopped and he looked, and he says, "We sing and we dance for the ones who can no longer sing and dance. You know, we do it for the ones who can, so to speak." And that right there, that just struck a chord with me. You know, that is the reason why we sing, for the ones exactly. Yes. Yes, exactly. It's unique.
You make up from a formula that you have?
What the songs?
Yes.
No, so the songs they've been passed on from generation to generation. Yes, and yes, and as opposed to contemporary songs, they're not handwritten songs. They're not written down. It's all oral. And you would find, yes, you would find that a lot of the history, a lot of the stories, the teachings, the songs, for example, are all oral. You wouldn't find a lot of it written down.
That's been passed on from family to family, generation to generation.
From grandfathers to grandchildren, all down the line, yeah.
We'll hear that on the weekend?
Yes, most certainly. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to taking what I've learned, what's been shared with me, and sharing it with the general public.
And now we return to Earl Baisden for the latest from the sports desk.
During a press conference yesterday at the new Bermuda Football Association's boardroom in Prospect, national coach Andrew Bascom spoke about what he's been doing ahead of Friday night's warm-up match against Puerto Rico.
Well, conditioning and a lot more work on the offensive end. I'm getting players to make hard runs out of midfield, as well as tracking back and getting back inside the block. Of course, that's a different mindset. And one of the experiences I find is when you pick the better players from each club, they come with behaviors because they are kind of spoiled in their teams. The demand is not necessarily on them to work hard defensively. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but it's just what it is. But now we have to ask these same players who will probably play the number 10 role in the clubs to now be a number 7, a number 11, and put in the hard work and commitment to get inside the crucial areas so our game can have more of a direction instead of just playing keep the ball. We must learn to keep the ball while we're going forward.
Are you pleased with what you've seen thus far?
Yes, I'm very pleased. I can tell you the commitment and the character of these men is a great example, and I can never stress that. And if you look at the makeup of the team, yes, we have professionals, but the professionals play in the first third, which is the goalkeeper, and they play in the last third. But in the other third, which is the core, there's our amateur players. These are players that have to come to training, go to work, come back to training, go back to work. And most of the responsibility is relying on them, shifting the block, tracking, all those small principles that's required to make up a good team. A lot of it relies on the amateurs. And then yet, in the most crucial areas, where we have a professional that can be there for us when we make errors, because as amateurs, we will make errors. So it's ideally to have a professional in that area.
Delray Rollins and his Eastbourne Cricket Club's first 11 teammates went down by 6 wickets to Preston Nomads Cricket Club in the Sussex Premier Cricket League First 11 Division. Eastbourne won the toss and elected to bat, and they were bowled all out for 142, with Rollins scoring 3 runs. In reply, Preston Nomads scored 143 for 4, with Rollins returning figures of 6 overs, 1 for 24. He also hung on to a catch. Jair Parfit-Williams and his West Ham United teammates made a strong start to the Hong Kong Football Club Citibank Soccer Sevens campaign, taking 5 points from 3 games. A young Hammer side were competing in the Hong Kong tournament and will now take part in the Top Tier Cup competition. This after Mark Phillips' team made a perfect start, defeating the Hong Kong Football Club Captain Select 1-0 in their opening match, with Parfit-Williams setting up the lone goal. Following a 0-0 draw with Chinese outfit Shanghai, the Hammers was set up with a final game decider against local team Kechi, with the winners guaranteed top of the group. Although it only needed West Ham to have a draw, they got it with a Parfit-Williams strike in a 1-1 draw. Jessica Lewis, reflecting on her performances in Switzerland, is quoted as saying, Let's see how I do explain my participation in the 2015 IPC Grand Prix in Switzerland over the weekend. How about 4 events, 4 personal bests, 3A and 1B qualifying standard for World Championships? I'd say it was a pretty great event. Lewis goes on to say, I can't even begin to describe the overwhelming feeling of pride and accomplishment I felt after every race I was in. I have worked so hard and have completely dedicated myself, which involved many sacrifices, and this weekend I saw the results, end quote. 25 boats went to the start line for race day 6 of the Wednesday night sailing series that begins in the Hamilton Harbor. Crossfire crossed the line first with a time of 1:06.20. With a corrected time of 1:12.46, saw them finish first on the night. Nasty Madison was the second boat to cross the line, clocking a time of 1:14.16, and with their corrected time of 1:21.01, saw them finish 18th on the night. The third boat to cross the line was Jobster, clocking a time of 1:18.32, and with their corrected time of 1:13.38, saw them finish third on the night. Smokin' was the second boat on the night with a corrected time of 1:12.54, after recording a time of 1:18.51. While Man O' War was the fourth boat on the night with a corrected time of 1:13.50. Passion rounded up the top 5 finishers with a corrected time of 1:14.47. Back in Black was 6th on the night with a corrected time of 1:15.30. Posh was 7th on the night with a time of 1:16.11. Fat Tuesdays finished 8th with a time of 1:17.49. Solace was 9th and a time of 1:18.27. And Honey Badger was 10th with a time of 1:18.40. The Team Hurricane basketball program announced that 5 of its players will participate in the Global Squad, an intense summer basketball program run by Alexander Basketball Academy. Bermuda student athletes Bryce Gonzalez, Jason Gonzalez, Jarrell Smith, Tyree Smith, and Dion Easton will be attending the month-long academy held at the Hill School in Pennsylvania from June 27th to July 27th. I'm Earl Baisden reporting for VSB Sports.
Looking at the weather for Friday, June the 5th, there will be sunny breaks with a shower or 2, increasing after midnight. Winds will be southeasterly, light to moderate during the morning. We're expecting a high near 80 and a low near 71. This weather forecast is courtesy of the Bermuda Weather Service. Thank you for watching VSB News Online for Thursday, June the 4th. I'm Charles Webb.